Okay. Look, before you get upset, just watch this.
See?
What the hell is wrong with you?
This, it's over. We're done. Humanity has reached its peak. We can't possibly surpass this.
Unacceptable! Well, I can agree that the parasocial nature of the VTuber industry is a symptom of late-stage capitalism and will not sit around while you become a hopeless idiot!
It's hopeless. Literally hopeless. There's nothing left.
You're coming with me!
You can't make me.
We are going back to 2008!
No. 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 No.
いつでも I love you 君に take a kiss me 忘れられないから僕の大事なメモリーどら焼きは主食になれないならば上書きしちゃえば僕の思い通りずっとそばで見てるよバックアップは任せて左から右へとねえ君のはいどうも小指から見えない主張しない乾いた心臓の音淡いワードとすぐに変わるなんて気にしてるからできませんじゃんそれでも信じて幸せになるように礼儀正しくまずは些細な挨拶とこからはいどうも
Hello everybody, I'm the Smuggler and welcome back. This is a season in review for Winter 2008. In this video, we are going to be taking a look at all of the shows that started airing in the Winter 2008 anime season. With that in mind, spoilers for shows that aired 13 years ago, and some of these shows are definitely not safe for work at all. So keep that in mind, and with that out of the way, let's jump into it. First show on the list that we are going to be talking about is Shigofumi. Shigofumi is an original series put together by JC Staff, and the first thing I notice is that the direction is really solid on this one, and the tone is overall very depressing. So we got this grayscale color palette that's basically smeared over everything. Apart from that, the audio design is actually really good. Tsuruoka Yota is the sound director for this one, which is crazy. This guy has worked on tons of great stuff. Full Metal Panic, Clannad, Afro Samurai, Hibiki Euphonium. Seriously, odds are, if you got some favorites, this guy has worked on the audio for at least one of them. He's got some bad shows in his direction credits, but I can't really say the audio was bad in any of them. He really brings us all into any project that he's on, so all in all, off to a good start. So the show kicks off with our guy Shota about to confess to Ayase, his high school crush. The usual anime phone call interrupts just as he's about to confess his love. Turns out the cops called, and they found her dad's dead body. He jumped off a roof, allegedly, so that kind of puts a damper on things. So Shota's moping around because he's sad that she's sad. Then the Grim Reaper shows up with a letter from Ayase's dead dad. So basically, the concept of the whole show is that when you die, you can send your final thoughts to one person as a letter, which is a pretty cool plot device. In this case, Ayase's dead dad addressed the letter to her boyfriend, but she doesn't have one, so Shota needs to make her fall in love with him so he can read the letter. And then suddenly there's this talking stick, and oh my god, this just got really stupid. So confessing to a girl right after her dad dies might be a bad idea. Our boy Shota really likes to build rockets, though, so he's going to launch the rocket successfully and use it to proclaim his love. There's some fluffy montages of Shota building the rocket and Ayase signing a death certificate. Oh, did I mention this show has tonal issues? There's an M. Night Shyamalan plot twist when Shota reads the letter by accident. Turns out that Daddy's dying wish was that his daughter get turned into the police because she's the one who killed him. But like hell he's gonna believe that. No way Ayase would kill her dad. Stupid. Like, he asks her out and they watch the rocket launch together, and it's one of the most wholesome moments I've ever seen in anime, which is what I would say if she didn't stab Shota to death. I would say spoilers, but all this happened in episode 1. I was wondering why Shota was only listed as a supporting cast member, and this is why. But goddamn, this girl is evil. Like, top 5 anime betrayal. She's also been sexing other dudes. Like, poor Shota. There's no dare here, only the cold steel of her blade. Cut to a cute anime girl digging a shallow grave. See, I was really surprised at all of this. I was so busy looking at the staff list on Mal, it turns out that this show is rated R17. I probably should have checked that. It would have helped set my expectations a little better. I was thinking it was going to be a murder mystery romance, but as it turns out, it's just murder. If sensitive topics in your anime rub you the wrong way, you can skip to this point in the video. After that, it'll be all happy, fluffy anime time, because the show that I talk about after this is also pretty bad. So I'll give you a few seconds, no worries. All right, for the rest of us, we're all in. Okay, it's happening. It's happening. So as it turns out, this show is actually fucked. But ISA is a serial killer for a pretty good reason. I never thought I'd say that. The show deals with like heavy stuff when compared to its contemporaries, and Shigofumi actually handles these topics fairly well. ISA's father was actually running an illegal porn ring and selling nudes of his own daughter, and that's just like a lot to drop on the first episode. So ISA killing her dad was only to protect her little sister from the same shit happening. When Shota found out about the murder, the only way for ISA to stay with her little sister was to kill him as well, because if she was turned into the police, nobody would be able to look after her little sister. That all goes to shit, however, when the cops implicate her in Shota's murder. She tries to escape, but the Reaper gives her a letter from Shota, who actually says he wishes he would have known sooner that she was in trouble emotionally, and that he always believed in her. Shota simping in the afterlife like a true king. So this leads to this really well done emotional climax where she runs back to the rocket which Shota was building for her, and she launches it, and during the launch, a plot contrivance leads to the police shooting her to death. While she's bleeding out, she watches the rocket fly and hopes that Shota is happy that his dream came true about launching the rocket. So the last letter that the Grim Reaper delivers is from ISA to her little sister. So yeah, you'd think I'd be spoiling a lot here, but all this happened in 2 episodes. The writing is mint, nothing wastes my time, and it gives me just enough to get invested and hit me with the feels, and then it's over. I love it. Obviously, it's not for everyone, since it contains a lot of mature subject matter. Later episodes deal with bullying, suicide, mental illness, etc., but do so with enough tact that it doesn't come out as edgelord-like bullshit, at least as far as anime is concerned. The series is episodic, kind of like an anthology series, focusing on characters with nothing in common except for their proximity to death. There is, however, a main through line with the Reaper girl, Fumika. I suppose calling her a Reaper is inaccurate, though. She's actually just a postal worker, but you get it. I won't spoil the rest, though. If you're looking for an anime with a decent story and tight pacing, this is definitely it. If you're looking for good anime to watch, you could do a lot worse. Also, the opening is the most late 2000s thing I've ever heard. I'd put this at an 8.5 out of 6 and a serious contender for Best Anime Award 2008. The next show I'm going to be talking about, not so much. So this is Rin, Daughters of... I never really learned how to pronounce that properly. I'll preface this by saying, don't watch this show, which is what I would say if I hadn't seen this show 4 times. This show is one of the weirdest viewing experiences I've ever had. Rin is not something any sane person would recommend to somebody. Most anime are like a pile of boxes. Each box has a thing. When they need a plot point or an emotion, they reach into the pile, they grab the box they need, and when they're done, they put down the box, and then they move on. Rin is like a bowl of spaghetti. The noodles are like the plot points, but everything is smothered in this thick sauce of lesbian sex and torture porn. But what is the plot, I hear no one asking? So, there's this fruit of immortality that turns people into immortal beings, but it only works on women. When guys have it, they turn into crazy sex demons. The ladies who are immortal can't resist the crazy sex demons for some reason. So they hunt down, so the demons, they hunt down these immortal vampire women, and while the vampires are uncontrollably orgasming, they eat them alive so they can steal their life crystal, which is full of this magical semen. The sex demons drink the magical life semen and take it to the BDSM throne, which is like a 40-foot tall pile of naked bodies, and if they can get enough semen together, Armageddon happens, I guess. This is literally what happens. 6 episodes, 45 minutes apiece. This is a full core show, essentially. It's 4.5 hours of 4 lesbian sex and sadomasochistic rituals with a really compelling science fiction subplot. Wild. Absolutely wild. While there's a lot of nudity, there's not, like, quite enough to call this a hentai. To back that claim up, this is actually available for streaming, dubbed on Funimation, okay? They cancel interspecies reviewers, but this shit is still fine for some reason. Like, my, how the times have changed. And the Blu-rays are still for sale. Cough, cough. What's fascinating is that somehow, by the end of the show takes all of this crazy bullshit and kind of, like, if you can get through it, like, it forms a compelling narrative with characters I care about and a villain that I actually want to see defeated. Like, top 10 anime villains, like this guy. The whole show takes place over the course of like 60 years. The main characters are immortal, so it goes from being like a normal detective story in the modern day to like 2080, where people defeat the world's first artificial intelligence. In another episode, they actually stop the zombie apocalypse, and then that actually all comes full circle to be important later. Like, the show is bonkers. The first time I watched this with a few of my buddies and a lot of alcohol, we binged the whole thing in one go, and after we just sat there in silence trying to make sense of what we just watched, and we couldn't. It was just so surreal. My buddy just looks at me and says, like, what the fuck did I just watch? And that sums up my thoughts about this show perfectly. I say this is something you could watch ironically with others, but you'll probably get mixed results. We were all pretty depraved, and I could see this show really messing with some people. Oddly enough, the dub was really good though. Probably one of Funimation's better dubs. I think with shows like this, it really comes down to a time and a place. Like, I really miss those guys that I hung out with back then, and everything was a lot simpler too. So when I look back at this weird BDSM orgy from 2008, I get a little nostalgic. I don't know. On that note, I wouldn't recommend this show, but it is something to happen. Next up is My Noble Masters. My first impression of this show is that it's one of the most offensively mediocre viewing experiences I have ever had to endure. So instead of calling it a day, I really went down the rabbit hole on this one. And there's some neat stuff here, I guess. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The show is not bad, but it's also not good at anything. It sits in this weird dead zone of derivative otaku crap, but I'm a positive guy who really likes looking on the bright side, so let's go through the good things first. This show does a great job at exemplifying the ever-increasing wage gap between the upper class and the proletariat. It is through my keen deductive abilities that I have ascertained the author's true intention. You see, this story is actually a historical fiction, aiming to show the strife of the serfs under the Tsar in the lead-up to the glorious Soviet Revolution of the early 20th century. Only through the blood and sweat of the working class can we hope to create a glorious utopia where we can all live in harmony. Wake up, sheeple! Through the industrialization of our motherland, we will rise like a phoenix from the ashes. Daddy Marx will surely look favorably upon us. Jokes aside, though, this show does have jokes. They are present. Oh, welcome, sir or madame. Our special today is sexual harassment in the workplace. For your appetizer, you can start with incest, but if you're still deciding, I can take your drink order. Our pints of masochism are on special, half off every Wednesday.
あなたの覚悟伝わりました。
The only redeeming thing about the show is that the main character shares a voice actor with Sagura from Full Metal Panic. The art is okay, but bland. You can literally transpose these characters and backgrounds into any other show from this time and not know the difference. There's fan service, but it's just shoved in there to pad out a plot that's on life support, and this whole thing is taking itself way too seriously. Like, if it was a little bit more carefree and loose with, you know, how it was portraying its characters, I'd give it some more credit. I can see what it's doing. It's trying to get me emotionally invested in this eroge plot, essentially. The main characters are all siblings with romantic attractions to one another for some reason, and there are some questionable decisions on the part of the director which make the romances uncomfortable. The funniest jokes the show makes are just references to other shows, but even then it's like Smooth Brain Initial D references. And if I wanted those, I'd just watch Initial D again. Like, am I asking too much of this? I'm really grasping at straws here. And then I started thinking, why did this show get made in the first place? And then I found it. I was getting these weird vibes like, where have I seen this before? it was mainly the character designs that did it for me. I don't know if you guys have seen this image before, but for a while, if you typed in anime girl wallpaper on Google, this image was pretty close to the top. The anime was based off of the manga, and the manga was not original. It was actually an adaptation of the 2007 eroge visual novel. You are the main, and the butler is me. That is the English translated name, which won the 2007 Bishoujo Game Award, allegedly. And man, the game actually looks really good. Like, the anime cannot hold a candle to the artwork, especially the background spreads in this game. The backgrounds look fantastic, and I'm honestly confused as to why they didn't just rip them from the game wholesale, as the anime versions are just down-resed copies of the VN assets. Oh, and all the stupid scenes in the anime where the MC walks in on the tsundere in various states of undress, well, it's an eroge visual novel, so now they have nipple. Problem solved. All of my aforementioned complaints are pretty common with anime adaptations of eroge. The branching path structure of VNs allows the player to pick a romantic interest and pursue that route specifically, or in the case of this eroge, limit a full harem down to a threesome or two. How this translates to anime, though, is often in order to prevent pissing fans off of a certain route. They kind of adapt all of them at the same time. There are exceptions to this, obviously, and they turn out really well, like Clannad, where they settle on Nagisa's route, and the anime and Tomoya's route is made into a separate OVA, or in the case of the Fate series, they just make a separate anime for each route. I'd love to tell you that the VN does a better job of handling the story and developing the romance, but in almost 15 years, it's never been translated, and the only place you can find it is on some random Japanese porn site, and it costs $90. So would I recommend this anime? Like I said at the beginning, you could do worse, but every minute you spend watching this would be another minute not watching something better. But I'm not your dad, so moving on. The next show on the list is True Tears. This show is amazing. The writing, oh my god. The art, it's so good. Okay, well maybe the CGI doesn't mix so well with watercolor paintings, but apart from that, god damn. Also, this opening slaps. Like, it just hits me. And then suddenly, I'm watching a Key adaptation and I'm ready to cry again. Why is that though? I smell blood in the water, and I'll get to the bottom of this mystery. Like the last show I talked about, this is also technically a visual novel adaptation, but really only on paper. While it's titled True Tears, from what I can tell, this actually doesn't share plot points, characters, or really even a setting with the original True Tears visual novel. The entire script is actually original and made by one of my favorite writers, Mary Okada, who also wrote the entire script for Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans. Like, oh my god. But why, I hear no one asking, would you make a visual novel adaptation if you're just gonna throw away the entire visual novel in the first place? To answer nobody's question, POV, you're Atlantis, a big anime production house during the late 2000s, and Key Animation keeps dropping banger anime adaptations of its original visual novels. You see that cake and you want a piece, but how? Well, you pick some tonally similar visual novel off the shelf, throw it in the garbage, steal the name, and assemble the best group of wage slaves your post-bubble economy budget can muster. What you get is True Tears, Bandai Namco's attempt to cash in on the Moe Boom romantic tragedy. They did a pretty good job. The fact it ditches the VN for the original script means this doesn't suffer from any of the same issues as My Noble Masters. But again, the issues with that show could also be solved with competent production staff. The script is well written, but the director really brings out the best of it, I feel. Very interesting shot compositions, solid use of color, and some really creative surreal scenes that show the character emotions. That last point is something that's underutilized in a lot of romance anime in favor of voice-over narrations. This show is very spicy. Not in a domestic girlfriend kind of way, but in a you adopt a cat only for it to die when you get into a car crash on the way home. And yeah, there's just drama on every level. At the lowest level, you could make a goddamn flowchart of the character interactions in this show. The MC's got a crush on his adopted sister. His childhood friend has a crush on him. His best friend has a crush on the childhood friend that has a crush on the main character. And for some additional spice, the main character's mom hates Hiromi, the adopted sister, for being adopted, I guess, which causes issues around the house and marital conflicts with the father. There's also a star-crossed lover plot with the adopted sister, because of course there is. A super weird girl named Noe has a crush on the main character after he feeds a chicken, and the childhood friend is hella jealous. The characters are let loose to navigate this spaghetti soup of bullshit, and no amount of melodrama is off the table. It's like a battle shonen of emotions. How have I not seen this yet? For the setting, not really much to say. And the fact the MC's family runs a sake factory is somewhat relevant, but the story is 100% riding on the characters, so you could have this same story set on Mars and it would still make sense. If this sounds like your thing, you should definitely check this out. There's a reason why this is regarded as a hidden gem among the seasonal crap, and for the series writer Okada, this would mark a significant step in cementing her role as the queen of anime melodrama. Next, Rosario To Vampire. Whatever True Tears is, this is the opposite. So a listless harem protagonist fails a grade and gets an invitation to the Yokai Academy. I went into this completely blind, no research ahead of time, decided to mix it up a bit. I'm not new here, though, so I already know where this is going, and I don't like it. This stinks to high heaven of derivative otaku crap. This show is a masterpiece. 1. Simple premise, which is executed on effectively. 2. Great background art and use of color. 3. Interesting scene compositions and camera placement. 4. Distinct character development and a plot-driven narrative. Seriously though, this show is actually put together really well. And I say that because there are scenes and cuts that could have been done with like half the effort, but they gave it some gusto. I like that. I was ready to drop this in the first 5 minutes until they hit me with like a perfectly timed match cut, followed by a Dutch angle and some very well-timed tonal shifts that really drive the nail into the coffin, so to speak. Its real charm is, I think, that while it may be very much otaku fan service, the level of polish on display, at least for the time period that we're talking about, is very high. Minus the fights, which look like ass, but speaking of ass, I can really tell where the budget went. It sets up the premise and a rhythm, and it tries its damnedest to deliver on that. The core conflict is that of a normal guy who gets sent to school full of monsters, which we've seen like 100 times. The key difference here is that the monsters are actually trying to kill the guy, and the guy is just a regular dude. So, episode 1, he almost gets killed by this orc with a tentacle tongue. Again, this is anime, so that's what orcs look like now, I guess. The main love interest, Mocha, is a vampire with a necklace that seals her power away. Do you see where this is going? Because I did, and I was not disappointed. So, who's the only one who can break the seal on her powers? Well, it's the normie MC, of course. Somehow removing the seal also causes her to grow 3 cup sizes. So there's that too, I guess, because of course there is. The tentacle orcs don't stand a chance. So the basic plot through line is the weakest of the weak befriends the strongest of the strong, and what follows is a delightful clusterfuck of rom-com fan service and acceptable animation. Also, a weird aside, I always liked Halloween Town when I was a kid, and I don't know if you guys remember that, but this feels like that, but for like otaku. That's a bad comparison. When I've gotten the first episode, I had all these flashbacks to watching Halloween Town on the Family Channel for some reason. I don't know. That was weird. Even though this show is kind of bleh as far as it goes, I find the episodes giving me a chuckle, and the openings for all these shows are so good. Something about that fluffy 2000s J-pop really gets me going. So let's postulate for a second. Let's say that vampires aren't your thing. Well, you'd be in luck. Like any good 2000s rom-com, the first several episodes are always used to establish the main character's harem. And the price is right. The offering of waifu monsters we have on display, nice. We got the succubus girl. We got the stalker emo ice spirit girl, and the lesbian magical girl. Okay, that last one's not a monster, and I don't know why she's here. Honestly, she's the worst part of this whole show. Terribly annoying. On an off note, this show also comments on bullying a bit, but it's got so many panty shots in every scene, I just end up feeling really confused. I mean, it's okay to have a good message, but delivering a heartfelt confession while a character's ass is in full view kind of takes me out of it. You know, is that just me? That's not unique to this show, but one of my larger complaints with anime in general. The gameplay loop on this show is very predictable and safe, not a lot going on. The main characters start in a place of comfort, and something threatens to come between the main character and the vampire girl, so the harem up to that point has to fight to protect the status quo, and that usually resolves with a new girl joining the harem. Mocha has to release her vampire powers to save the day, and things go back to normal. In summary, don't expect much, if anything, from the story here. Although, funny enough, the reviews on Mal from 2008 all bring up that the story is bog standard and episodic. Like, it's some crime against humanity. To which I would say, like, yeah, I didn't go into this expecting character development. From what I can tell, people were really pissed off about the show when it came out, and all of that has to do with expectations they had going in based on the manga source material, which allegedly has a better story, but of course it will. My box of Rice Krispies has a more interesting read than half of these harems put together. In defense of this show, though, I'm not nearly as pissed off watching this as I was while I was watching My Noble Masters. If we want to compare plots and narratives, Rosario has even less to offer. But it doesn't waste my time. There's just enough story to string together the ever-increasing number of panty shots, and nothing more. The show went for something, and in my opinion, it succeeded. Plus, the direction, use of color, and the characters in general, and just, I don't know, the way that they talk, like everything about the show just feels better and more polished than My Noble Masters. I'm sure you can point out 100 harems that do various things better than Rosario, but my response would be there are even more harem shows that are way worse than Rosario To Vampire in every way, and honestly, if you're watching harems, it's just the more the better, really. This show is perfectly acceptable if you go into it with the right expectations, and I'll stand by that. Next, H2O Footprints in the Sand. I remember this. I tried watching this last year during the winter 2020 season, but got caught up with interspecies reviewers and forgot about it. Round 2. This show is like peak moe melodrama. You'll either love it or you hate it. Very similar to True Tears in the respect that we got a lot of characters with a lot of baggage. I felt that whereas True Tears has subtle foreshadowing and nuance, this show has no such tact. Like, I can't even. This shit is almost too edgy to exist. I don't even know where to start. The show cold opens on a couple of guys beating the crap out of a girl in the rain. Okay, like that's the level of melodrama we're on right now. The main character is blind because of some PTSD from a past tragedy. Plot twists abound as this depressing rom-com melodrama with light supernatural elements unfolds. And I can't believe it's not a visual novel. Oh wait, it is. With the current discourse in the community about isekai and light novels being like everywhere, I imagine people in 2008 were going something similar. Oh, look at what Clannad is doing. We can do that. What's a visual novel? Not important. Just license one and we'll let the writing department figure out the rest. I suppose if there is any saving grace to this corporate cash grab, it's that for a brief period of time, perverts worldwide were using Kleenex for its intended purpose. Now let me be clear, I'm not saying this show is bad. The writing is quite good and a cut above the rest when it's not beating me over the head with preachy dumb bullshit, but rest assured, this show is constantly beating me over the head with preachy bullshit. Like, come on, the main girl's backstory is that the village people lit her house on fire. They just straight up committed arson and said, "We don't like you, you should leave." Now, obviously, it's anime, so the central conceit of a show is pretty easy to buy into, usually, but this is just elevating the melodrama to absolute ridiculousness. I guess when we talk about melodrama, in order for it to function correctly, the tragedy has to be relatable and believable. Pile on all the fantasy magic you want, but the character conflicts need to feel real or they don't hit right. That's why Truck-kun works so well as a plot device, especially in tragedy. Presumably you have known someone or who's been in a car accident, or at least it's something that happens enough for you to be empathetic to that situation. So when Truck-kun strikes down your favorite waifu, case in point Rumbling Hearts, you empathize with that situation and feel sad. On the flip side, there are comparatively few people who are the victims of spontaneous arson attacks. There are stories with tragic characters, and then there are characters that are tragic because the story needs them to be that way. This show is just tear baiting me and it doesn't give me enough to go on. You know, I'm being harsh, I know. It's not that the show is like really terrible, it's just not doing a great job at what it's going for, and after coming from something so similar like True Tears doing it really well, this just doesn't really sit right. Although it's very similar to My Noble Masters, the VN is probably better, and it looks like this VN actually got an English translation at some point. If you like True Tears or Clannad or really any key adaptation, this is another safe bet, but do yourself a favor and watch Rumbling Hearts first. Everything this show does wrong, that show does right, and I can't recommend Rumbling Hearts enough. Next! Alright, last on the list is Spice and Wolf. Like, oh god, what do I even say about the show that hasn't been said already? Well, out of every major TV anime that released in winter 2008, this is the only show that stuck around in popular culture, to my knowledge. Shit, people are still making videos about this. I always found it interesting how this is seen as an artistic look at medieval economic theory, with such deep relationship building. But at the same time, it's also responsible for creating an entire generation of furries. That's my hot take anyways. I really like this show though, and it's one that I actually sought out the DVDs and Blu-rays for back when HMV was still a thing. There was a time when you'd be hard-pressed not to find the Blu-rays for this show on shelves. And actually, since this is a show about economics, allegedly, let's look at how this show performed commercially. Without getting into the amazing attention to detail present in the show, I could prattle on for ages about how great the direction is, or how well Hollow and Lawrence bounce off of each other as characters, but the horse for that has been beaten to death already, so let's look at some spreadsheets. Now, here is a table of aggregate Blu-ray and DVD sales data for the years 2000 to 2016. Out of 1,609 titles with public sales data, the first season of Spice and Wolf sits at 232 for the highest average sales figure on the list. That puts it in the 86th percentile, if I calculated that correctly. I don't know. Which means that roughly 85% of anime for that period of time performed worse in terms of physical volume sales. Of course, these numbers are also pretty loose, and the formatting on this table is fucked, but you get the idea. For pre-order sales, Spice and Wolf beats out shows like Hibiki Euphonium, No Game No Life, and Black Lagoon. And for the total sales figures, including re-release, it hits above its weight class and wins out against Macross Delta, One Punch Man, and surprisingly enough, Kiss X Sis. Although the second season would fall considerably, landing at 453 and selling almost half what the first season brought in, it would still be considered commercially successful against its contemporaries based on this random list I found on the internet. But if you thought this information was credible, just wait, because I'm about to get fast and loose with these numbers. For the first release DVDs and Blu-rays, Season 1 grossed an estimated 308 million yen, which works out to around $3,072,764. If you go by the currency conversion rates for November 2008. So that's after adjusting for inflation with yet another online calculator, I can say with a degree of certainty that Spice and Wolf Season 1 made around $3.8 million in today's dollars, plus or minus 15%. All of these numbers are basically voodoo anyways, but if we push this even further, the consensus of neckbeards around the world seems to be that an episode of anime currently costs between $1,000 and $300,000. So with a medium estimate of $200,000 per episode times the 13 episode run, we can assert that Spice and Wolf Season 1 cost about $2.6 million to make, which leaves $1.2 million for investors and the studio. Not a bad investment for Studio... Who made this again? I forgot. Studio Imagine? They haven't made anything since. This can't be right. Did they go bankrupt? Oh, the website's still up. Why do anime studio websites always suck? They did work for Pony Canyon and Madhouse. Huh. They must mostly do subcontract stuff and in-betweens, because I can't find them credited for anything on any of the Madhouse or Pony Canyon shows. Like, the studio makes little difference in the actual quality. It's the staff that bring the show together. But to think this building could be where Spice and Wolf was made, now it sells cars. Those damn normies. This place should be a World Heritage Site. Maybe nobody bothered to update the Wikipedia. I smell a mystery. Alright, website, show me your secrets. The website was updated August 1st, 2020 at 1 a.m. The footer says 2019, but someone's been here. It looks like the domain is registered until the end of July. Unless it's an auto-renewal, somebody's keeping the lights on. Weird. Anyways, this is just a normal Monday for me, by the way. I suppose the universe has a sense of humor if the one-hit wonder studio behind Spice and Wolf did go bankrupt. Although, when I actually stopped to think about how obscure this studio is, no one would probably look twice or even know that it happened. Much like the eventual heat death of the universe, some things are just inevitable with the passage of time. People move on, they forget. Sometimes I feel a little too soon, which is why I made this video, so that we remember 2008 in all of its glorious moe melodrama. So next up on the list is going to be Spring 2008. I'll be trying to release these quarterly alongside the actual current season. So we'll always be watching and talking about something that happened 13 years ago in relation to this current season. So subscribe and get notified for the next one. For this series, I'll talk about shows that aired in that season with no carryovers. I'll also be ignoring long-running series, like 50-plus episodes, depending on how I feel. Next season looks like Soul Eater aired, but I've already seen that, so I'll give my brief thoughts on it anyways. To explain for my subscribers, still working on the Macross 7 video. The script is really long, like it'll be longer than my SDF video, I think. So instead of banging on my head while I write about the trials and tribulations of Basra, I've been doing a few episodes at a time. What I can say is I'm bad with deadlines. This was fun though. Nice break from my regular job. So yeah, anyways, honorable mentions and carryovers from the previous season, which I didn't cover in this video. Sayonara, Zetsubo Sensei, Clannad, and Aria. The Origination, which isn't actually the first season of Aria even, but Aria is a really good science fiction like slice of life show, so I definitely recommend that one too if you're looking to chill out. Apart from that, this was the Smuggler. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, signing off.